wiener, 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 wiener,
One wiener next to another wiener.
wiener, wiener,
Two wieners alongside yet another wiener.
wiener party, wiener party, 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 wiener party,
Wieners nice and soft, non-erect
flopping wieners, flopping
wieners,
dangle wieners, dangle
wieners in my bed.
Stop, please! I can't take it anymore!
Welcome, Internet people, to the Fourth Floor Features podcast, the podcast where a bunch of us fourth floor people and our friends get together and talk about pretty much whatever we want. And today, we really want to talk about Game of Thrones Season 7, coming to your friends' HBO and torrent sites on July 16th. As always, I'm Lucas DeRuyter, and joining me today is the meme historian, Ryan Holtz, all the way from the fourth floor LA branch. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing well. I like the meme historian. I've taken now 3 different college courses that involved memes, so I believe that I can actually accept that title for once. So, yeah, I'm excited to be on the podcast. I'm excited for the LA branch of Fourth Floor Features.
We're expanding!
Yeah, what can you say, you know? One person, everywhere that people move, that's going to become a new branch, you know?
Definitely.
So,
that's
after college,
Lane.
after college, everyone's just going to split up, and then it's going to be sowing our wild oats across America and otherwhere if people go abroad.
Laying down the roots of our network, which is mixing metaphors, but whatever. Okay.
Okay.
Game of Thrones Season 7. I'm hype.
Absolutely. It's all about the hype. This show must hype. That's all I know.
And the trailers are probably a big reason as to why I am hype. Do you,
Yeah.
I guess, I just rewatched all of them quickly in preparation for this. There's a lot going on. And it's weird because a lot of people thought that this season would be basically like 0 White Walkers, all, King's Landing, Battle for the Throne stuff. But now it seems like everything is going to be going on concurrently.
Yeah, and it's interesting for the narrative because I feel like it would have wrapped it up really neatly. And I think people, at least me, a lot of people got into the show with the King's Landing conflict, and then the Walkers kind of like came along and added more. Mm-hmm. But the way that they're doing it to kind of like end them both at the same time would be interesting. And I mean, I guess we don't really know. It could be like a mix in season 7, and then season 8 is only one of the conflicts, you know, presumably the White Walkers. So.
I'm going to make a prediction, probably be proven wrong, but I think the wall either comes down first episode this season or penultimate or last episode of this season.
Yeah, it's been foreshadowed a lot, especially in the books with the Horn of Joramun. Mm-hmm. Like, that's big time, like, foreshadowing, and George R. R. Martin really hits you over the head with foreshadowing a lot of the times. So it's probably not a red herring. And the whole, I think that the Bran touched by, you know, the Night King, like kind of ruining the wall's security and everything like that could carry some water, and that might be involved. So we'll see how it goes.
Is it necessarily foreshadowing if he never delivers on it?
Yeah, well, he probably won't, but we can get into that later.
Now we're talking about how hype we are about the trailer.
Yeah.
And I guess, well, you had some like littler moments that you wanted to like get into a bit more from the trailer. What do you think? Yeah, go ahead and start wherever you want on that.
The small, like, little bits can really go crazy, and Alt-Shift-X on YouTube does a better job than I would, but like the stuff that I pick up on, like big time stuff, is Euron sailing into King's Landing. Like we know that's his sigil, mm-hmm. and Euron Cersei like partnership seems like it would make a lot of sense, to be honest. Like that from my end, that's two different show villains that have kind of been built up to be like the baddies to replace Ramsey.
Yeah.
Because like Ramsey was kind of like the wicked bad guy, not like the more neutral bad guy, and so now they need someone to kind of fill that role, and that could be a Euron Cersei alliance.
And they do both have beef
So
with
we'll
the same
see.
people, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and they're both anti Dany Yara power couple. So we'll see about that. God damn it! If Jaime Lannister wasn't your favorite character before trailer 2, I don't know how he can't be anymore. Like, for me, he was my favorite character because of the way that they brought him back from the brink.
Right.
You can't start a show with a character attempting to murder a child and then build him all the way back to this unless you have some serious talent working on it, because like his arc is one of the coolest things that's ever happened in media to me. Like, that is just such an interesting story. And now we've got him charging through a literal field of fire. Like, it's insane, and it's going to be something else. And I think the field of fire definitely confirms the big battle of Daenerys and Cersei that's been foreshadowed for a long time. But I think that might be season 9 territory, or episode 9 territory.
Yeah.
That would make sense. That's probably not early, but I guess you never know.
That's
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that's true. I mean, we're getting to the part of the show where they have got to start wrapping up some of these loose ends. So I don't know if they can go with the same kind of structure they have previous seasons, just because it wouldn't really make sense to me to build stuff up even more when I think a couple of things are ready to be tied off pretty quickly.
Yeah. And also no episode 9 because 7 episodes. So.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. Is it episode 6? Is it episode 7? Who knows? But yeah. And then also, like, kind of building on that, I think the conflict might be two-pronged because we get a little bit of what looks like Casterly Rock and a little bit of Tyrion. And there was the old theory, as soon as Tyrion joined up with Daenerys, that Tyrion worked as, like, the sewer operator. Like, he kept the sewers running in Casterly Rock. And Dany has literally already used that strategy of, like, infiltrating the city through the sewer and then letting the rest of the army in. So, like, that theory now, if we got Casterly Rock and we have Tyrion, like, what better person to attack Casterly Rock than someone who knows it inside and out, you know? So that could be huge.
That'd be a good coming home thing for him.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a little interested what they wind up doing with Tyrion, because he's gone through as much, if not more shit than any other character in this, to the point where I can't imagine what they would do as a good ending for him. Like, he winds up in some kind of happy situation, which makes me think maybe they're just going to kill him off at some point, which would suck, but I don't know how you close that character.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be like the perfect irony if he became the Lord of the Casterly Rock and like became, the richest person in the Seven Kingdoms and a very powerful person at that. So, but I can see where such a tragic character, they usually don't have happy endings in Game of Thrones, Like if you've had tragedy the whole time, it just probably isn't going to work out for you because I don't know, they don't necessarily like to mix arcs between a tragic character and someone who does well. So
the Lord of Casterly Rock is a little on the nose too, like that.
That's for sure. But it would build it up, I think, just because of the whole Tywin Tyrion dynamic, like you're not my son and everything like that. It'd be kind of fun. So that's just the fan in me who likes Tyrion a lot, wants him to succeed. That's probably not fair, but
all right. I see in the Google Notes, and thank you, by the way, for actually adding to the Google Notes. First person to do that.
Nice.
Much apprecited. You have you have a Clegane Bowl confirmed, and that is the one I am most interested in.
Oh yeah. Well, at the very end. So I also have the team of 4 that appears like they venture out beyond the wall. That's Jon Snow, Tormund, the Hound, and Beric Dondarrion. Who, what a surprise! Like, flaming sword comes out of nowhere, to fight White Walkers. Like, that's incredible. But you know, that's just seems like a cool little storyline. But then at the end of the trailer, we have a low shot of the Hound with a very heavy sun, confirming that it's still summer. So that means it's definitely down south. That is not in the north where he is earlier in the trailer. So where is the sun? Like, where is it still semi-summer? Even though there was the one trailer with Cersei breathing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's winter in King's Landing.
Right.
But basically, you know, that's down south. That's King's Landing, like maybe Dorne, but in theory that'd be King's Landing because who wants to talk about Dorne anymore?
Right.
So we've got King's Landing. We know who's at King's Landing. We know what his motive is. It's a stretch, but I don't think that Cersei would be as opposed to trial by combat
anymore
as the hype killer Tommen Baratheon.
I am.
So.
That was legitimately my least favorite part of season 7. If only. The canceling the Clegane Bowl, having built it up the entire season up until that point. And I understand, like, a good storytelling is to kind of subvert people's expectations of what's going to happen, to change it up on them. That can be done really well if that thing is replaced with something equal to or better than what you're expecting. But it just went away. Like, there was no, okay, this is an equally good thing. That's even better because I wasn't expecting it. That's replacing the Clegane Bowl. But no, it's just dead. Not doing it. Suck it, fans.
Yeah. Well, it was a weird timing because if it happened early in the season, I could see, like, I would say that their reasoning for doing that is to stop the hype, you know, like to stop it being built up and teasing us for even longer. But it should have definitely been done earlier in the season because, you know, they film all the episodes before any of them are released. So it's not like they filmed 4 episodes, went like, oh man, everyone's talking about the Clegane Bowl, and then like switched it because of fan service. It's like they went like, we know that people are talking about Clegane Bowl, so in one of the later episodes in the season, we'll say, oh, by the way, it's not happening. So it's weird that they went, oh, we'll do that later in the season to like tease them even more and then ruin that expectation. So I don't know.
I guess when you have a character in universe and that character being Jaime fucking Lannister saying, oh, that would be a sight to see. It's like, no, that train is, no, there's no stopping that train now. That is.
Yeah. And maybe they did it because they wanted to like destroy our expectations, and then little did we know season 7. But I think at this point, it's definitely far more likely that Jaime is the Valonqar in the prophecy, and he's going to be the one to end Cersei and not the Clegane Bowl, because the look in his eyes at the end of season 6 was definitely, that's the new Mad King, and we know what he does to Mad Kings that burn people. That's usually death. That's a death sentence. So, yeah.
Unless you're one of maybe 5 characters that fire revives you for some reason, or keeps you young, or whatever fire needs to do for the plot. That's what it does.
The Lord of Light works in mysterious ways. What can we say?
I do wonder if they're ever going to get into like any of that stuff. You know?
Yeah, I think the theory with the most credence is that the Braavosi, they kind of have the strongest, like the best understanding is that it's all kind of one like super being that people see in different ways and kind of like worship in their own ways, and his name is Death. So we'll see how the show progresses, but we haven't seen any concrete evidence of the Seven, which is kind of the primary religion in Westeros. So it's weird that most other religions have had some sort of legitimacy, except for like the super big one,
right?
And that's the one with multiple gods. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, maybe that's like a signal that, hey, guess what? These are all people understanding this supreme being in a different way. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll talk about it at some point in the future. So
And I mean, now we're kind of getting into the territory of the, littler, or at the very least, background plot lines that they still need to wrap up. A lot of the trailers is addressing, no, all of the foreground stuff definitely going to be addressed this season, definitely going to have momentum. I wonder some of the stuff that's been in the background pretty much the entirety of the show, if we start seeing some of that closed up as well. The first thing that comes to mind for me is, does Littlefinger finally get his comeuppance this season?
I was worried that you were gonna talk about Gendry. Where is he in his boat?
Still rowing.
I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, but yeah, no, Littlefinger. I mean, the fact that it seemed like a lot of the trailer of Sansa's narration in the trailer too was definitely centered around Littlefinger and that no false friends and all that kind of stuff. I could definitely see. The whole thing with the lone wolf, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's the lone wolf dying and the pack surviving. That means that Jon and Sansa are probably they're gonna work their things out and team up to take down their threats, which in this case are the White Walkers and Littlefinger, it seems like. So we'll see about that.
I think, the only other glaring kind of second track story that I can think of that also needs to be addressed is Sam needs to get that shit taken care of with his dad. And
yeah, what the hell, Heartsbane, just it's what happened to it. It just, that's it, Ugh.
I forgot you were pissed by that storyline. Yeah,
it was really dumb.
Yeah,
it didn't make any sense. I don't understand. It's so out of character for Sam, and it didn't. If it would have been this, for example, he always wanted to be a scholar, and his dad wouldn't let him because he considered it, inferior to fighting.
Right.
So say there was this ancient scroll that the family had that had, for some reason they acquired from the Night's Watch or something, and it had all sorts of research about the White Walkers, and his dad always forbid him from reading that certain scroll, and so he sees it and steals it. That would be in character, but I don't understand that he's just oh, I'm gonna take this sword and then I'm gonna go away from the people that need the sword. It was dumb.
Just as a middle finger to his old man. Yeah,
it was literally, it wasn't I need this sword for fighting walkers. It was oh, I fuck you, old man, There's different ways that could have happened, so I don't know.
All right,
but
yeah.
That storyline definitely needs to be wrapped up.
Anything that you definitely want addressed, or this thing is kind of wrapped up by the end of this season?
Well, I'll be honest. I wanted Beric Dondarrion. I wanted his storyline to have some sort of ending, and it looks like that's probably coming now that he's in the trailers again, because he had an interesting story in the books, obviously with Lady Stoneheart. That was a big thing in the books, and they alluded to it very lightly in the show, but I could see maybe a mention of Lady Stoneheart and not a full storyline involving that, and then kind of the logical end of the man who couldn't die being killed by the undead, the whites. And now that I've brought up the whites, that was my biggest note of every podcast that mentions Game of Thrones. Usually they're not centered around Game of Thrones. Those podcasts will have it down.
Right.
They'll have a book reader or something like that. But people that only watch the show do not understand the difference between whites and White Walkers. And it sounds incredibly nerdy, I'm sure, but there's a gargantuan difference. One of my friends who I met out here in LA literally didn't understand why it was such a big deal that Jon Snow was able to block the White Walkers' attack in Hardhome. They were like, yo, what's the big deal? He was killing tons of them, tons of White Walkers before that. Why was it such a big deal that he was able to kill that one baddie? And I'm like, hold the phone.
He's not a baddie. He is a boss.
Yeah.
That was a boss fight.
He is god tier. Yeah. Well, the White Walkers are a separate race that now we have their backstory too. So there's literally no excuse for you to not understand the difference. The White Walkers were basically corrupted by the Children of the Forest and are now a different race. And we don't know if there's any women White Walkers, but all we know is that at the very least they're being reproduced by like turning human beings.
Yep.
Like, for example, the Craster sons into themselves, and then thus becoming like a super ice race. And the whites are literally just reanimated dead people that are zombies, practically. Like, they are only good in numbers, and the fact that they can completely overwhelm you is what makes them dangerous.
Right, and especially now that everybody knows how to kill them.
Yeah, and whites are super duper weak to fire, but it doesn't appear like White Walkers are super weak to fire. It seems like they're honestly strong against fire.
Put out a fire, yeah.
Yeah, like when he walked right through the burning building, it seemed like, I mean, we don't know about like dragon fire, obviously, but like normal everyday fire does not mess with White Walkers. So they're two different races, two different sects entirely. They just happen to be conjoined because the White Walkers can control them. So
that
rant over. All you podcasts that mention Game of Thrones but don't necessarily have a great understanding of it, just please heed my word, because that's like one of the cringiest things ever for me. Is just not understanding, because it's a pretty core element, and it's going to become huge in this upcoming season and the season after that. So
speaking of dragons, does somebody kill one this season? Because I feel like we've earned somebody stabbing a dragon through the head at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that people don't really understand. The people understand how strong dragons were during the conquest, during Aegon's conquest.
Yep.
They were basically unbeatable. But the thing is, they had Balerion the Black Dread, which is like the biggest dragon ever. Although in the trailer, it seems like Drogon is starting to approach Balerion levels, so we'll see about that. But dragons can be killed, like especially if they're confined. If you find a way to trap a dragon, not unlike Skyrim, like they're really not that difficult to take down. They were probably incredibly vulnerable in the vault that Dany locked them up in. Like, a few people with some long weapons could have probably been able to take them out.
Just shooting arrows at them, yeah.
Yeah, like they would have been out of range. They could have taken cover from the fire. Like it would have been able. They're not indestructible,
right?
I guess. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of the lesser dragons, most likely Viserion, because Viserys was a piece of shit.
Most people don't even know who Viserion is. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. I think he's the green and gold one. I can't remember, but
okay.
Yeah, I think it's. Oh crap! It's Rhaegal, right? Is the other one named after Rhaegar?
Yeah. That. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Rhaegal is the third one. So, I mean, you got Rhaegar Targaryen and Khal Drogo. Like, those are two of the biggest badasses in the show. Even though Rhaegar wasn't ever in the show. I guess he was momentarily.
Oh, there was that weird flashback. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of, it wasn't like a real scene, but he might. I think there's rumors that he was cast for season 7 in a flashback, so that'd be kind of cool. But yeah. So those two are badasses. Viserys is a piece of shit. So if Viserion goes down, I wouldn't be shocked. So that'd be cool. I don't know. What's your opinion?
I think we need something cathartic like that to kind of eclipse the other really great battle episodes that we've had past seasons. Hardhome, amazing. Battle of the Bastards somehow blew that out of the water. And I think it might take killing a dragon or something equally insane for this season's big fight episode to beat out previous seasons.
Yeah, and I think it could provide some much needed checking of privilege for Dany. Like, good God, has she just gotten off the rails lately with high and mighty queenliness? Like,
she's coasted.
I think, I really think that a reality check for her could be really important to restore. Like, this isn't the same Dany that told Tyrion, I want to break the wheel, you know, like the champion of the common people, like wanted to destroy the caste system. That's not really the same Dany, the one that's like, this is my birthright, I am the queen. That's not, I don't like it. And to be fair, I've never really been a big fan of Daenerys' character, so it's probably not fair for me to be talking about her needing a reality check, because, you know, there's been multiple times in the series where I was ready for her storyline to literally end. So
if they could do one thing with Dany this season besides maybe grounding her a little bit, it's that for a lot of people she's been their favorite character, the most inspiring character. But the bad part about her and like everything she does is that it's just kind of a thinly veiled fantasy version of imperialism. And that always hasn't been terrible, because the people that, she's destroying their culture, it's, well, we worship a horse god and are essentially barbarians. Or, we are 100% okay with slavery. And that's like imperialism getting rid of not great stuff, but now that's finally going to Westeros, and it's going to be stuff like, the old gods, nobody can worship them anymore. Fire god, you're out of here. That's not a thing. So I guess maybe, her hitting characters that people actually are really attached to and like, I think might make her a bit more of a gray character than what people make her out to be, or at least like they'll see that she's a much more ambiguous character.
Yeah. Well, and I think Lord Varys could play a role in some of this upcoming stuff, because I don't think that people give him the right amount of credit. I think that he was a Targaryen loyalist, right? Obviously. Like, one of the very first episodes has Arya, finding him in a conversation with Master Illyrio to get her to Westeros and saying that, they're not ready and everything. But, like, I think he was hedging his bets, too. Like, he didn't raise any concerns about murdering her, like sending an assassin, which almost succeeded. Like, I think he didn't do anything. He could have definitely sent one of his little birds to talk to someone to prevent it, and no one would have known. No one would have been the wiser that Varys is the one that stopped the assassination. So I think he was definitely hedging his bets a little bit here, and his loyalty is still a little bit dubious, and we could see something going on there. So
it would be,
we'll see.
I don't think he's going to be the one to kill Dany, but that would be something if he did.
Yeah, I think he could definitely play a role, not necessarily the one that's going to end it all. So, yeah.
All right, now I think maybe it's time we get into a couple of reasons to be concerned about Season 7, since we spent the last, 20 minutes sucking its dick.
Well, this is going to be point counterpoint, because I'm going to continue sucking.
Show left off at a really great place, a lot of momentum, things are changing, storylines are finally ending so that the bigger ones can be addressed. The problem, though, being that Game of Thrones has fucked that up before, looking at Season 5, blah. Yeah,
Season 5 is one you had on the notes.
Yep, Season 5.
And I'll say that I disagree about Season 5. I think I'm such a fanboy, though, that I couldn't even notice the filler episodes on first watch through. And then second and third watch throughs, it was like, this episode didn't really have much excitement. But I definitely say that they were filler in the way that they tried to set it up to be even more epic. Like you're saying, it's really hard to top what they've done. And I think Season 5's idea was that in order to top what they've done, they needed to kind of take it down a notch so that they could jump back up a notch, But then they also had terrible, terrible, terrible storylines.
I know it's become popular to shit on all of the Dorne stuff, but it really was. Oh, why was that even there? This could have been 20 minutes of the show.
Dorne could have been left out entirely. The storyline had no consequence.
Other than Jaime and Cersei's daughter dying. But that could have been...
Yeah, but that could have been anything. That could have been just a message. Like, oh, by the way, your daughter died. Like, we weren't connected to her as a character. We saw her, 4 times.
It wasn't even the same actress, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She grew up, 8 years all of a sudden. Like next time we saw her, she was literally like a 9-year-old girl, and we saw her like as a 18-year-old woman.
Yep.
So I have no I don't really. It was really, really utterly mishandled, and so, but I think that's probably because they knew going in that it was filler, and that made it difficult for them to be motivated to actually give it meaning and make it good. And there was no budget, clearly, like set apart for that. Like some of those fights were just pathetic. So,
and synced up perfectly with yakety sax. Yeah.
There's the one clip on YouTube of the fight where I don't even remember. They count the missed punches and other blows, and I think it they're to be relevant, their punch landing ratio was lower than Jeff Horn's when fighting Manny Pacquiao. I watched that fight last night, and to date this podcast, that was just an utter highway robbery.
Nobody gave a shit about that fight either. There was no hype around it seemed like. At least not in the mainstream.
Well, because everyone was expecting Pacquiao to wipe the floor. But yeah, no, it was definitely an entertaining fight to watch, but Pacquiao got robbed. Anyway, Game of Thrones.
All right, the next point in the notes, well, we've talked about the scale that the show's gotten to at this point, and if we haven't made clear where we stand on that, the little bit of trepidation we have going in, I'm not sure what else to say. Do you maybe have any other points?
Yeah, I guess hype can be a challenging thing for sure, and it's hard to deal with. But Battle of the Bastards was basically all of season 6. Like everyone knew it was coming, and man, did they knock it out of the park! Like It was just unbelievable, the cinematography and directing that they went through. You felt like you're suffocating at the bottom of that pile with Jon Snow.
Yep.
Like I found myself literally holding my breath because I wasn't sure when I was going to get that next breath of air. It was insane, the amount of theatrical talent. Like honestly, these are film people. They're not television people that are working on this project. And it's just really hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that it could be a total letdown, I'll say.
Right.
Like, I think that some people obviously will build it up to a place in their heads that it's impossible to deliver on. But I have in the notes that just the sheer talent is so good that there's no way it's a total letdown. Like, I put Warriors in the Warriors in 2017 because, like, everyone knew going into the season that just the amount of talent on that team, there's no way that they could totally lose. Like, worst case scenario, they lose in the finals again. And, they didn't, but everyone knew that they were going to be the best team. So I feel like that's kind of this. Like, everyone knows that this is going to be really good. Like, could it not quite live up to the hype? Yeah, but it's not going to be a total letdown.
I guess me being a little more writing-minded person than, obviously you're focusing on the cinematography, I really appreciated during that entire episode-long fight scene that all of the characters stayed in and were true to the characters throughout all of it as well. Obviously Ramsay being a bastard and just lobbing the arrows in there, killing his own guys. Jon Snow just kind of losing himself in all of it. 1-1 being a reluctant monster. I notice a lot in movies and TV that, a fight scene happens and it's just kind of, these two guys or multiple guys are going to be fighting now, and that really doesn't say or build on any of the characters at all. But Battle of the Bastards, no, it nailed that.
Yeah, and I will point to that as a shining example. And then after Battle of the Bastards, like, we also had another insane episode of television. So there might be surprises in there too, that, like, we all know that the Field of Fire is coming this season. Yep. But, like, what if right after the Field of Fire something crazy happens? I don't know. Like, I think that those surprises that the show's able to hide amongst, like, the non-surprises is what's going to elevate it past the like insane crazy hype that might Like, it might even exceed it. You never know. It's gonna be fun. So.
And I guess my one other primary concern with the show finishing up and maybe them not getting to everything or addressing everything is that there are 4 spin-off seasons in development. Might happen, might not. And my one just grave fear is that they leave a medium-sized plot thread unaddressed, and hey, you gotta watch that spin-off if you want that to get resolved.
Yeah, I don't know. They haven't laid out the timelines for the spin-offs. They've just confirmed the spin-offs. But yeah, if one of them is set like concurrently or like immediately after the Game of Thrones, then yeah, that's bullshit. Like I would agree. That would be like what's it called? The DLC that's, you know, preloaded and but you still have to pay for it. Like that.
Yeah,
It's a money grab, and I understand HBO because this Game of Thrones ending is going to leave just a massive hole, more than any other show in history. Like Breaking Bad is the only other one that even comes close to mind, but the thing about Breaking Bad is it wasn't nearly as high budget as Game of Thrones. So like it's just going to leave such a massive hole in their programming, and I don't blame them for trying these spin-offs.
Right.
But if they rip us off like that, I agree, that would be just absurd. But yeah, like my thing with the spin-offs is that being someone who's now working in television and, you know, understanding a little bit more of what development means is like it's so early stages. Like I would honestly be surprised if more than 2 of them like actually resulted in a series, and if more than one of them like actually grew to be Game of Thrones sized. Like I'd be, and what I have on here is that this universe is massive and so entertaining, and if you haven't read the books, like you wouldn't understand just these stupid little minutia that George R. Martin is able to inflect, and his world building
Tolkien
is so
levels,
supreme.
yeah.
It's insane. And that's I also have on the books, which if you want to get into that right now, like the reason that I think the earlier books are stronger than the more recent books is because he had so much more of an opportunity to lay out his world. And in the later books, it's already laid out, and his storytelling isn't necessarily as strong as his world building. So yeah, I think that his world that he has built, and there's very, very talented authors, such as the ones that wrote A World of Ice and Fire, that understand it and have added to it, that are really making it an interesting universe, and I wouldn't mind a spinoff. So, but I agree, if all 4 spinoffs result in series, that's going to be a little bit too much,
I guess.
So
going off of your expertise, and obviously this will just be conjecture, does development mean we have a couple of scripts, we're outlining how the entire season will flow, we maybe have people cast? What is, or is it just kind of a catch-all term?
Development it's definitely a little bit more of a catch-all, but I would say that's because it's a process.
Okay.
It depends on where they are in the process, but development starts with literally someone that the studio has on retainer, like a writer usually, with an idea, and they go, okay, they'll usually be like, okay, present us your 4 best ideas, and then they'll be like, all right, I like that one, write a script for that one, and then they'll get the script and be like, okay, we're gonna tweak that a little bit, and then they send a second script, and then they get into considerations with where the show will continue beyond the pilot, but they'll film the pilot first. Like the Game of Thrones had the unaired pilot that no one saw, and then they reshot it for season 1, episode 1, and that's pretty rare, especially with such a high budget show. So
yeah, I had heard about that.
Yeah, we'd probably never see the original pilot. They'd get the pilot back. They'd decide if they want to order it to series. They decide how many episodes they want. They start thinking of overarching story. But I would doubt that they're much beyond like getting the script ordered and stuff. Like I'm sure they're working on the pilot episode, if anything. So they're early in stages, I would say. And I wouldn't bank on development meaning series at this point.
Okay. And I guess my final thought on the spin-offs, if it's something like, hey, here are the adventures of Dunk and Egg, that would be great. I'm on board, gonna watch that. If it's, hey, this is where Melisandre went after she left Jon Snow's camp, no, fuck that shit. That would be horrendous.
Well, and I think it's like what I said with the concurrent and or like immediate future spin-offs. I don't want that.
No.
I want to explore different time periods. I agree Dunk and Egg would be awesome. Like there's some insane like could you imagine young oh man now I forgot his Aemon. Aemon.
Oh, yeah.
Young Master Aemon, like that would be so cool. Like there's some really fun stories that could be told, and I would be very frustrated with this same time period being shown again.
Yeah. And then let's see what's next. Getting into the books a little bit. I think we're both kind of the mindset that at the very least George R.R. Martin isn't going to be the one to conclude the series, which is kind of a bummer, but we are going to get an ending in the TV show, and chances are it's going to be better, good, probably. It's going to be solid at the very least. So it's just kind of a bummer that it tapered off like it did. The books, I mean.
Yeah, I think that a lot of book readers understood from about the third book on that he was slowing down, and I don't think his heart's in it anymore, which makes me not want him to finish it almost. You know, like if he's not inspired anymore to continue this series, like what I have in the notes is that he's worried. Like I think he's self-conscious that he has to not only be equal to the show, he needs to exceed the show to appease his fans, and that's got to be really, really difficult for a show as good as Game of Thrones. Like he's got some crazy expectations, and he's shown before that he can be very self-conscious in his writing, and so it just wouldn't shock me if he's literally come to the conclusion that I don't want to put in the work to exceed the show. My heart's not in it. I'm not inspired anymore. I'm done with this series almost. Like, so if his heart's not in it, and these books are going to continue on their general kind of downward trend, I think it'd be fine to either let someone else finish it, which it doesn't seem like he's too keen on.
I get that,
or letting the TV be the definitive ending to the story. So
that is something that is going to be academically studied for a century. Is the fact that an unfinished book series created one of the most monumental works of television ever. That's insane. That shouldn't happen, but here we are.
Well, he's way too optimistic, because when he started the series, or when the series started, the TV show, like started development, it never went through his head that the show would catch him in the writing. So I think when he started to feel the heat on his back, like the show was starting to catch up to him in some of the storylines, like even in season 4, like Bran had to take an entire season off because they'd caught up to the books in that storyline. I think he started to feel the pressure a little bit more, and he wasn't expecting that, and that made things, a little more complicated than simply, just writing what he wants to write and finishing the story as he sees fit.
Now that I think about it, Bran taking an entire season off is going to be another weird thing looking back 10 years from now,
Yeah, no, and I think Bran's going to be crucial for the ending of the series.
Yeah, he has to be.
Yeah, so like to the point where he might be the definitive moment, like the ending. I mean, he's the only one other than Howland Reed that knows of Jon Snow's mother. Like he still doesn't know that Rhaegar is his father, but he definitely knows Jon Snow is no Ned Stark bastard. That is Lyanna Stark's son.
Right.
And I feel like he knows that Lyanna was kidnapped by Rhaegar, quote unquote kidnapped. So he would have an idea. So I think that just that knowledge alone makes him definitive. And then the ability to create time loops. That's a pretty big deal. That's got to be interesting.
They better not use that as a way out, a writer's way out if they back themselves into a corner.
Yeah, I can see it coming into play, but yeah, I agree. If that becomes the crux of everything, like he goes back in time in order to prevent something, then it's gonna be frustrating.
I mean, I guess on to closing thoughts now. I mean, we're both more excited than we are not for season 6 to get started. You much more than me. And yeah, even the complaints I have or the worries I have, they're very easily avoidable things. So, God, the 16th can't get here quickly enough for me.
Yeah, I literally cannot wait. And I just, like I've said, I've been able to find a couple of friends that enjoyed the show here. So I cannot wait to, have a good old fashioned viewing party. Really delve into just how insane, like this. I feel like episode 1 is going to just kick us in the face with some insane stuff right away.
It'll need to, yeah.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I can agree with you that people need to maybe temper expectations a little bit, but that's just because the last 2 episodes are some of the greatest episodes of television.
Yep.
So it's people need to possibly be like, okay, this might not join the lexicon of television history, but I think it's going to be solid television.
So long as the gears keep turning, I think I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
As long as there's always something happening, I think I'm more or less good to go.
As long as Jon Snow remains brooding and depressed, there will be hope for this television show.
Yeah, I've thrown out a couple of predictions in this podcast so far. Do you have any you wanna maybe take a guess at?
I guess I think the bold prediction is that Varys is gonna have something to do with Daenerys' downfall.
Okay.
That's super bold. I don't think that's necessarily likely. But something more likely is I definitely think that Sansa and Jon are going to team up, and it's going to be more of a fight of possibly the Knights of the Vale, which are they're badasses. Like that's underplayed in the show because Bronn's able to just like kill one of them like it's no big deal. But the Knights of the Vale are definitely feared throughout the Seven Kingdoms. They saved their asses in the Battle of the Bastards, and like that's not an army that you want to be trifling with. And if Sansa betrays Littlefinger, quote unquote, betrays Littlefinger for Jon Snow, yeah, he's not gonna take that very kindly, and that could be a very interesting conflict. So that's my far more likely prediction.
So I guess something to end with, something probably every Game of Thrones podcast should end with. Who's dying?
Ooh, okay. This season I've got Yara Greyjoy.
Yep.
I think she's definitely going down. And I'll say bold prediction, I'll go with Mira. I think Mira's going down too. I think Bran needs to have some tragic event to really fully realize his powers, and Mira's kind of his last connection to anything. Thinking of how helpless he would be physically without Mira it would be an interesting storyline.
Exactly, that thing that brings him down to absolute rock bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, and like he would be entirely helpless without that. Would be the last human being that he knows. He can't walk. Like it'd be interesting to have someone who is so mentally powerful but physically weak. It would be very. It would be something that Game of Thrones would do.
Right, and it's kind of like the best parts of Tyrion, except elevated to the extreme.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally Tyrion times 100. And Tyrion and Bran had that bonding moment in season 1, and Bran's been able to cover for his physical inadequacies with other people. And if they take away that last cover that he has, that might be when Bran flies, as the Raven would say.
My predictions, The only major one that I can think of that would work both as, like, narratively and to kind of wrap up stuff for a character, Brienne of Tarth. She's dead this season.
Ooh.
And that's finally going to be the thing that pushes Jaime over the edge.
Man, that would be really interesting. And I like Brienne of Tarth a lot. She's one of my...
No, exactly, yeah.
She's probably my favorite woman character. I think she's everything that Dany is made out to be, but she actually, like, backs it up. Like, Dany's kind of made out to be this incredibly powerful female character, but Brienne of Tarth is just sitting there, like, getting shit done, like, dealing with tragedy, and making logical decisions that sometimes Dany doesn't quite make. So, yeah, that would be devastating to me.
Well, it would also have a big impact on a lot of characters. I mentioned Jaime. I think her death might be... It would do something with Sansa. Whether that's lean more on Littlefinger, or if he played a role in Brienne dying, then, oh no, I have got to cut ties with this guy right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I hadn't considered Brienne of Tarth. That's a very interesting call, and she's definitely a non-essential character. Like, she doesn't have the plot armor that a lot of these characters have, and that's kind of what it is at this point. Like, you look for the characters without the plot armor, and they've got to be the ones that are going to go, because it's not Game of Thrones if you don't have deaths.
Yeah, and this is the point we're at. Like, a little bit the essential people, but like every non-essential person, like, oh yeah, they're 60-40 on them dying.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sad, but it is also true that we're going to need to trim some fat if we're going to be devoting the attention that these storylines deserve. There's going to need to be less storylines.
Yep.
And
death is an easy way to do that.
Yeah, Brienne's definitely a less essential but beloved character. So that would be a Game of Thrones trademark, killing off the less essential but beloved characters.
Well, God, and this is just rambling from one thing to another, but fuck it. Speaking of beloved characters, Arya and the Hound meet back up. We don't really know what's happening with Arya, and I feel like that would be that would be a good closer for them.
Yeah, and I think that choosing the three that go out with Jon Snow to die, Tormund the Hound and Beric Dondarrion, like that's kind of cheating, because it seems like that's a suicide mission, just venturing out beyond the wall to fight White Walkers. That seems like, complete death. Like, there's no chance.
Yeah.
So, but I think that the Hound, Arya clearly knows what she's doing at this point.
Right.
Like, if she's able to get from Bravos to the Twins with no problem at all, easily infiltrate Walder Frey's inner circle and murder him, like, the Twins are nothing to be messed with. It's clear that she's a badass. She knows what she's doing. So to think that she can't get back to Jon Snow and the Hound as well, like, I think it's probable that there's going to be a meetup, a reunion.
There needs to be. And just you mentioning that, I had forgotten that, like, my second favorite part of last season was the Rat King story finally paying off.
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
And of course, carried out through our greatest revenge artist, Arya Stark.
Woo. All right, man. I'm about tapped out on Game of Thrones stuff. This podcast could either go for another hour, or we could, finish it up in a couple of minutes. Do you have any more closing thoughts, last things you want to get in there?
I think my closing thought would just be to not necessarily temper your expectations, but don't necessarily hold up Season 7, Episode 1 to the standard that Season 6, Episodes 9 and 10 are, because it's just unfair. There's no way that a show could live up to those, especially in a premiere where they're going to need to start establishing the direction of the show. So I think that would be my main, like, hey, Season 7, Episode 1 is going to be lit, but, give it a little bit of a chance.
Yep.
As well.
You have to have room to build.
Yep.
All right, and that will just about do it for this episode of the Fourth Floor Features podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like the video and subscribe. Also, be sure to check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Tumblr. Also, check out our other content. Please, would love to get some more views on that. It's the Adventures of Proof right now, but if you're listening to this in the far-off future, we probably have other stuff up on the channel by now, so check that out as well. Thank you, Ryan, for joining me from the LA branch, and yeah, see you guys later.